Hello, it's still Sunday. I thought I'd read another chapter. My dog just barked really loud. I just hope this wasn't a bad idea. Anyway, it's Sunday and it is the 2nd of January 2022. I'm reading out of BLISS Afterlife, which is a story I started in 2006, which is now 16 years ago. These chapters are later on. Can't remember exactly when I wrote this. At some point I write when I wrote it, but it hardly matters. Anyway, it has been a work between 2006 and 2021. Chapter 6. No, I'm now at chapter 59. This is a story about a reincarnation, and it is about Bliss, who is a departed soul. She was 95 when she passed, which is a little while ago. We are now well into a while of the incarnation, which is well on its way, basically. Chapter 59. Bliss. Bliss had been contemplating on Tony, her grandson. She had loved that boy so much. In so many ways he was like his mother, Holly, but also like Chris, full of good masculine qualities. She smiled. Once she was back here in this realm, she could see her own lives as a male. She could focus on one of her lives, like concentrating on one facet of a diamond. Diamonds always made her remember the love of her life. He had not been the man she had spent most of her last incarnation with. Funny. She had had such a good marriage as Bliss. She remembered that life very fondly. Well, Tony was one of the results of that union. As Holly's son, he played a big part in her last life. He was such a precious little boy, Bliss thought. He is just on his way to discover new things. He's now not a boy anymore, but a man. Melanie will be a whole new ball game in his life. Bliss was enjoying the family dramas she had been observing. There was no fear for little half-Chinese baby of Faye. We shall be quite sure of that, Bliss pondered. She had a good time thinking of Tony and Faye and Ben. What a good story they made. She felt a need to connect with Alexei. Almost no more here now, and connecting with his or her new body. She had a little wobble in her mother's womb, and Bliss was needed. Chapter 60. Melanie. Melanie put a little more cheese on the lasagna and decided to have a bath. One of her favorite things to do. Always made her feel calm and collected, and a wonderful place to receive messages. When her mind was still, she would receive information. Whoever would have had a peek at her whilst she was in the bath would have been surprised and think her talking to herself. Which to a point she was doing. She was talking, but she had an independent flow of information, and she conversed with that. She had always been what was called a dreamer. In fact, it was in several of her school reports. She would always feel that what she now felt was an independent consciousness. She would get her information, and for a long time she thought everyone was like that. Until she discovered, quite uncomfortably, that it was considered mad to talk to oneself. And when she used to do it as a child, she always said that she was talking to a friend, an imaginary friend. Now she stopped at that. And now she had stopped that because she was becoming to be looked at as a little odd. She started to be more aware when she felt a conversation coming. When she was in her teens, it seemed to go away. In fact, there came a time where she missed it. She remembers asking for her friend to come and was overheard. Then there were rumors that she had schizophrenia, after she told a couple of friends about it, who in turn must have told their parents, and her mum said that you should be careful with this sort of thing, as people did not understand it at all. It was all a little woo-woo, and she learned to take her conversations in private. Now in her 20s, she had become much wiser, read all the greats who had different aspects of reality. She was for sure not alone. One of her favorite authors, Joan Marshall Grant, was quite a famous author in the 1940s or so. She died in 1989 and had written many books about her past lives. Joan was a seer, and she was able to relive her past lives in a trance. She was married 3 times, and all her husbands seemed to have supported her, believed her, and when she married a psychologist, they both explored together the interesting aspects this gift had given the world. Melanie was immensely and immediately fascinated with her. She had bought a second-hand biography, which literally was pressed into her hands at a market. She couldn't even remember exactly where that was now, but she had read it avidly when she was in her late teens. Read all of Joan Grant's novels and was becoming comfortable with her abilities to communicate. The wisdom she would get was amazing, and lately she had got to voice out all the questions and the answers and recorded it. She had often found it difficult to remember what she said, and it had been a little bit of a revelation to her when she found a couple of years ago that the conversations were fascinating, even more so in hindsight. Her questions were getting better, which made the answers more profound. She had always been interested in the esoteric, and way back as a child she probably had the same consciousness talking to her, but it was more like an imaginary friend, and her family didn't find it awkward when she had conversations with Mio. She couldn't even remember why she called this friend Mio, but now it had become the way she addressed the other consciousness, which appeared in her head now only when she was relaxed and focused, peaceful and dreamy. She had been asking all these questions over the years. She remembers talking in her head at school, gazing out of the window, lamenting being inside on such a lovely day. Mio always soothed her. It was the way, she said, and to be part of a society she would help. She could help. She would need to live within it, within a normal family, town, society. She had felt like running out so often, but what did she need all these useless, boring information and stuff? She knew she was taken care of. She always surrendered, though. She had her ways of making it all good. And Mio was often giving her quick advice whenever she felt sad or annoyed. As long as she had time for herself to communicate properly, she was okay. As long as she had time to speak and listen. When she came to London 3 years or so ago, she had not found that time. Everything was so busy, always so many people around her. She was taking the tube to work in those days in an office which was small and full. But she was glad to experience London, and she managed quite well, making new friends, going out quite a lot, never having enough money. She had a couple of boyfriends, but as soon as she felt more comfortable with anyone and told them what really went on in her head, they seemed to be turned off. She had suddenly felt in a rut. She missed space around her, and her walks on the common did not make her feel any better. She had moved to the South Coast 4 months ago. She had started a reflexology course and part-time work in a coffee bar. She had more time to be by herself, and she loved walking along the beach, and Mio had been much more active in the last few months. She had got a kitten when she realized she had a cat flap in one of the upstairs windows, which led onto the flat roof and via a big fence into the garden. That settled it. She had always wanted her own cat, and now, with 27, she finally had Pippa, a beautiful, pretty and snuggly cat. She loved having a companion who was independent and loving and so cute. She stepped into the bath. She had taken her iPad and put some nice music on. Breathing deeply, she called Mio. She breathed deeply and focused on her friend, who was always there. She felt the love and connection. Mio, how come you're always right here? Are you hovering around for me to connect with you? She giggled. Dear Melanie, we do like connecting with you. We can see you. You have this vision of us floating around like the smoke, waiting to be sucked into you like breath. She laughed to herself. No, we, and you know that your Mio is a plural and multi-dimensional, we feel when you call. This might be in the past or in the future. We are not of your linear time, and we connect vibrationally. It is your vibration which works like a magnet to us. Mio, if I'm a magnet, then can I attract others like you? Yes, it is possible to attract others with a vibration, but what you feel and have felt all your life is this particular tune. You will always know it is us. If someone else proclaims to be Mio, it would be like your cat appearing like a big snarly dog proclaiming to be Pippa. Only because you have the evidence in front of your eyes would you be able to make someone else understand the difference. To you, the feeling determines that you identify as. It is us, Mio. It is us, Mel, my dear soul. She laughed again. Thank you, Mio. If I know that really. But I have started to record what I'm saying. Yes, we know that, dear. And we feel this is a good thing. So, you intend to talk about us then? Yes, and you know I am. She was laughing to herself again. I realized as soon as I saw Tony that you had something to do with that. Moving here to this flat was such a sure thing as soon as I saw it advertised. Actually, it wasn't even advertised, was it? I talked to the estate agent and they told me of this place before I actually even knew that I could afford it. And you had made sure it had a cat flap. She laughed again. Am I right? Yes, my dear, it was indeed time that you meet Tony. We are in touch with his grandmother in the other realm. Even though you knew before you came here that you will meet him, it was fun to see how you are now finally having some alone time together. Gosh, how much of this does he know? He knows nothing, but he is aware of the magnet. She giggled again. And he has talked about you already to Ben, who is also part of this particular story. She smiled to herself. I've not met Ben. Tony just mentioned him, and I know he's his cousin. Yes, indeed, same grandmother, and also watching with interest how that develops. So how is today going to go then, Mio? Darling Melanie, you know we shall not tell you such specific things. Anyhow, this is something which will be a good development if you stay clear in your heart. You may know that he is an old soulmate, not something exactly new to you, as we know you have been thinking about him a lot. Yes, but I have that sometimes with other men. You know, I have not had any close connection with a man for some time now, and it seems like Tony is the first guy for ages who intrigued me straight away. Although I had that with others initially, it always ended, and I was often sad about it. So I hope he is not going to be so dense. Darling Melanie, he is not dense at all. His grandmother and mother saw to that. But it is true. You had a similar encounter with a soul friend, which came to nothing. Sometimes people are not ready, even if the situation is set up. Free will rules, and Klaus was not ready. So your ways parted. He had more growing up to do, so to speak. She laughed, looking back at the time when she had felt so close to Klaus and opened her heart, and he was never seen again by her. It was quite painful at the time. She had fallen in love with him and was so sure they had connected well, but she was crestfallen when he didn't ring her or even replied to her text. And then she had got annoyed, which helped her to get on with her life. She had travelled to Australia that year. That helped to get her over it quite easily in the end, and she had talked to Mio all the time, who said at the time that all was well and her path would become clearer with age. I feel a sense of urgency on some level, Mio. What is it all about? I cannot put my finger on it, and I'm quite glad for the dinner I shall have with Tony. Yes, I know, dear. We are now fast approaching a time of shift. Your economic systems are faltering. We hear credit crunch and new words coming into people's consciousness. It's all breaking at the seams. But Mio, I'm not interested in politics or even economics. What can I do? How can I alleviate? Because I hate having this feeling of impending doom. It doesn't last long, and usually I'm far too busy to worry about it. But it's hard to avoid hearing about all these huge debts countries have, and austerity has to be implemented and so on. It has me baffled how everybody can be broke, and still some have more money than sense. The more I hear, the less I understand. Yes, we know, Mel. Actually, avoid the news altogether, particularly on your TVs. You can get a glimpse of it all via other ways and get a basic idea so as not to appear ignorant. She smiled. But do not give it your energy or focus unless you know immediately what you can do about a particular situation. Like the old lady the other day, you gave her the sandwich and the coffee for free when you saw how little change she had. That was a good help, and when you can do something, it doesn't matter if it's something little, then do that little thing. Maybe even sometimes a big thing. But don't listen to all the woos of the world, which just unsettles you and gives you a feeling of being helpless and powerless to it all. The recent earthquakes, yes, we know, and the scandals in your politics, they go on, but your vibes should be clear and high, so focus on bringing yourself upwards, and with that, others. All the negative influences are not helping you to help others, my dear. They only make you feel unsettled. So, child, let us settle and surround you with light so you have a clear alignment for your meeting with Tony. This meeting should be exciting, but not full of unsettled feelings, right? Thank you, Mia. That would be appreciated, as you know. Thank you. And make sure my lasagna is delicious. Ha! You're always testing us, aren't you? Well, you did have help, but not from us. Tony will find it quite like his grandmother's flavor, which is no coincidence. She laughed and closed her eyes more tightly, tensed her toes and shoulders only to relax and sink deeper into further connection with Mio. She didn't feel like talking anymore or asking questions today. She saw herself on a wide green paddock, blue sky and slowly moving white puffy clouds, green hills in the background, and a river in the distance. She felt the sun on her head and started to walk towards the water when she saw a figure in the far distance. A woman came towards her, smiling. Bliss, she thought. The woman was now quite close, and she could feel herself wanting to embrace her. So calm, so kind and knowing eyes. Indeed, I am Bliss, the woman said, when she felt herself embraced, full of love. Give her my love and loving wishes, she said, and found herself alone again. Suddenly, startled by the cat flap, she came back into herself, and by now the bath was cold. She sat up. Gosh, how long had she been in the bath? She washed, put the hot shower on to rinse her hair and body, by now wide awake and ready to heat the oven. Get ready, girl, she thought, still pondering over the lady she visualized. Bliss, a state of being, but also a name, I suppose. Anyhow, I'm sure it will all reveal itself to me. Putting the oven on and getting dressed, she finally settled in front of the mirror. Melanie was whistling to herself and was looking forward to Tony. That was chapter 60, and the next one is chapter 61. And I'm wishing everybody a very good Sunday evening. Bye-bye.